What's up, guys? Welcome back to Dead Malls, your favorite niche little show here on the internet. And finally, everyone say it with me, finally, we are in the beautiful city of Detroit, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. It was around this time of my expedition, around mid-afternoon on day 2, that I was feeling so much better. When I say that day 1 car drive killed my legs, I mean it really killed my legs. I had sores. So day 2 was perfect, because I had a nice mix of walking and driving. Anyways, as we enter the city here, we make our next stop on our journey at Westland Shopping Center, or Westland Center, a fascinating, beautiful mall with simultaneous mixes of the 60s, 90s, and 2000s, and an absolute puzzle of a layout. Before we dive in here, I'd like to congratulate our winner who was able to successfully guess the next mall. Very nice job, Mark. If you'd like to have your chance of being next week's shoutout, stick around for the next challenge. Anyways, let's finish up our exterior drive around, head in, tell the story, and see what shopping in the Land of the West is all about in July of 2022. Also, before we head in, I find it a fair point to mention that I was extremely curious to see what Westland had to offer. Unlike most of my malls, I didn't look up too much about this place, so I was going in completely blind. But from what I saw of the enormous big box Macys and Sears, I knew that I was in for a 60s treat, and boy was I blown away. Catch you in a bit. Starting us off with an old neon nail salon, pastel tile, planters, wooden JCPenney entrance. Oh yeah, get ready for the 90s here. It only gets way better. Westland Center's story begins over 60 years ago in the outskirts of Detroit, Michigan. During the early 60s, the city was booming, downtown was flourishing, and the suburbs were growing at an exponential rate. With the shopping mall trend still in its infantile stage, downtown-based Hudson's department store was looking to build another mall of their very own, with this third to be the company's first enclosed center. The other two opened as Northland in 1954 and Eastland in 1957. This third would follow the directional name trend and be Westland Center, and so it was. In 1963, groundbreaking would begin about 23 miles west of the city center, in a small portion of unincorporated land in Wayne County. The mall itself would be built with its signature Hudson's department store at its core, flanked by over 40 inline tenants and shops. Designed by legendary mall developer Victor Gruen, it was almost certain that Westland would be a grand slam, and while an opening date was scheduled, the only thing residents could do was hold their breath and wait. I kind of wish I would have stopped in and shopped at some of these small discount places. It almost feels kind of like Lafayette Square in here, a discount haven. And while I'll admit it's not as bad as most malls I've seen, you can tell the glory days are long gone. Just let the stains in the carpet tell you that. Coming up here, we have the beautiful West Court, adorned by cloudscape skylight panels. This old wet seal in this whole wall of old tenants would have once been a Kresge, but now almost everything here is gone. Thousands would gather on July 29, 1965 to see the mall's official grand opening ceremony. Leaders from Hudson's, local officials, and Gruen himself would all stand atop a small stage, breaking bottles of champagne and cutting a magnificent red ribbon to allow eager shoppers in. Inside was a world unlike any other. Most malls of the day were grand at opening, but Westland was a diamond in the rough. Featuring Gruen's magical touch, the mall was built with the massive 4-story, 350,000 square foot Hudson's as its centerpiece, which overlooked 3 distinct courts. On the west side lie the West Court, a beautiful sunlit atrium filled with live plants, sculptures, and an aquarium. Down the hall sat the Central Court, a wall of storefronts shaped by the Hudson's entrance, and many more plants. And just a bit further sat the East Court, easily the mall's star attraction. This 2-level court featured Hudson's primary entrance, plants, and rainbow-illuminated fountains, which danced elegantly through the skylit atmosphere. Bulbous 60s lights dropped down from the ceiling, all framed by a massive clock on the wall. Against the backside of the court, a staircase stretching up and down fascinated shoppers. Up the grand elevator on the second story sat the Terrace Restaurant, Hudson's very own eatery in the mall, which overlooked the East Court via a balcony. With the massive Hudson's as its primary anchor, SS Kresge and Kroger worked as its junior anchors, with stores such as Coney Island, Tom McCann, Lane Bryant, Meyer Jewelers, Big Boy, Frank Simmons, and several others, including restaurants, banks, and much, much more. It's almost hard to enunciate how big of a deal this mall was. Each day after opening, it would be flooded with patrons, all looking to get their fix of modern American living. The mall was such a big deal, in fact, that the residents of the area voted in 1966 to incorporate the land as their own city. And so, in 1966, Westland, Michigan was born, with the gleaming, booming mall as its heart. Here we'll get into the gargantuan East Court. I was constantly blown away by the scale of this mall. Like I said in the beginning, this was all my first time seeing it, and I just could only imagine what it was like at opening, with the flocks of people, each tenant having that new paint smell and the rainbow fountains crisscrossing water streams. If you imagine hard enough, you can almost see through the years of remodels and imagine what it was like in that glorious day. It wasn't long after Westland's opening that the mall would face stiff competition, and from every angle. Wonderland Center just 3 miles north, and Livonia Mall 6 miles northeast, with much more coming soon. In 1970, the 4 directional malls would finally be complete, with the opening of Southland Center 12 miles away. By the mid-70s, expansion was imminent, and by 1976 would come with the opening of the West Wing. This addition would see the demolishing of Kroger and several stores, replacing them with a brand new 2-story JCPenney as the mall's second anchor. That year of 76 would also see the grand opening of the nearby Fair Lane Town Center, a mall that would be Westland's biggest competition over the coming years. We're gonna throw it to a quick liminal track here because this side of the mall features some of the most bizarre sights, including this old party room coming up, which I don't know. Between the Oasis and this, you guys let me know, which one is more backrooms-esque? By the mid-80s, the mall was going through a great deal of changes. Tenants of the past were leaving, mild renovations were occurring, and new tenants were setting up shop. Main Street, the new kids on the block, were rapidly expanding, and would open a brand new anchor in Westland in 1987 as the mall's third anchor. This was a much smaller, one-level store built in a new southeast wing containing just a few new stores. The Main Street name itself wouldn't last long, however, as just 2 years later in 1989, Kohl's would buy the company out, rebranding and expanding the store. The 90s would be largely uneventful, with Westland holding its ground amid another massive mall opening, being Laurel Park Place. In October of 1997, Sears would open as the mall's fourth and final anchor near JCPenney, with a massive 2-level store. Interestingly, Sears wasn't able to secure a large anchor court like Kohl's or JCPenney. Quite frankly, Westland was out of space, so instead, Sears would be built with its bulk as a disconnected anchor, loosely strewn to the mall by a narrow one-story entrance that demolished an old space. So, looking at it on a map, it looks a little strange. With the coming of the new millennia, longtime developers and still owners Hudson's were looking for a new angle, something fresh and contemporary to revive the aging mall, and in 2000 they would finally find their answer. Let's all take a ride on down to the old lower level, or as I like to call it, the lobby. Once featuring a few specialty stores, it now features a few candy machines, a tailor, and some offices. Also, please don't mind my horrible fumbling of the buttons. I was holding my camera weird because the 6 security guards were posted up right by the balcony. Anyways, let's head in. Up top these stairs would have been the old Terrace restaurant. It's just fascinating how much used to be in this mall, how much used to be a part of Hudson's. It had dozens of departments, garden centers, auto centers, and the restaurant. The Terrace would have gone on to serve those for years, offering fine dining for adults, while children could use crayons and draw on big cowboy hats. To anyone that remembers, when did the Terrace close? And how long have those plants been guarding the entrance up? In 2000, months after the world was supposed to end at the hands of that damn dastardly technology, Westland would receive a major renovation. The 90s-esque tile flooring, carpets, palm trees, and vaulted ceiling panels would all be installed, along with a coat of white paint. It may have been the year 2000, but this renovation, and I'm sure you've noticed it and would agree with me, feels a lot more like it's from the 90s. These clashing looks with the layout of the 60s makes the mall feel like it has an identity crisis. An awful, beautiful, very interesting identity crisis. This was arguably the peak of Westland. This renovation saw flocks of store renovations and additions, bringing it up to a total of 87 spaces at around 1 million square feet of space. Just a year later, Hudson's would become Marshall Field's, and then Macys in 2006. The Hudson's ownership brand was dissolved by this point, and its longtime owners and creators were no more. It was also by the late 2000s that the retail saturation in the area was made very apparent. Stores were closing at a previously unseen pace. KB Toys, Suncoast, Babbage's, all gone. And it would only get worse. With the recession over, Westland was feeling the burden of its immense size. Being unable to fill most of the old stores, in late 2016 it would be bought out by Great Neck-based Namdar Development, the vultures who swooped up most dying Midwest malls at the time, and they were no different here, being ready to kill. In January of 2017, Macys would announce that they would be closing their Westland location, with the store going dark in March. The loss of Macys was a big deal for the mall. While tenant closures were bad, the loss of the 4-story focal point of the mall was detrimental. The Hudson's name was the very heart of the mall, and even years later as Macys, it was still the biggest thing around, having grand entrances on all sides. Needless to say, this was bad, but it would only get worse as decline was accelerated. In August of 2021, Sears would be shuttered as the last remaining store in the Detroit metro. It was also in these years that the mall's sisters, Northland and Eastland, would be closed and demolished, with Westland looking to be heading down the same path. And that leaves us where we are today. Westland sits as an echo of the past, a reminder of 60s consumerism and how developers at the time felt the need to go big or go home. It sits today as one of very few left aging ruin malls, as most of all of his others across the eastern US have been torn down. So what do you think the future holds for Westland? How long can you see that eastern court keeping the very few lights it does have on? Is there still hope for Westland? Or were its glory days those of the rainbow-lit fountains? Let me know down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's episode. Stumbling out of a week-long cold, I was very pressured to get this one done, so I hope you all enjoyed. If any of you are ever in the area, stop by Westland, shop the Discount Haven stores, or just find yourself lost in that labyrinth of a layout. If you guys enjoy my Dead Mall content, consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future Dead Malls episodes, and head over to the Patreon for a monthly Dead Mall Polaroid taken and signed by me. Next week, as we head into the northern metro, we make a soaking wet stop at a rainy Taubman Mall, which towers over you in its sheer scale. Guess which mall we'll be at, and I'll shout you out in the next episode. Anyways, until then, have yourselves a lovely day, and peace out guys, see you later.